Good morning, and welcome to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. We are a philosophically based spiritual community founded on existential philosophy and feminist principles and dedicated to human liberation and the protection of the natural world. My name is Patton White, and I will be facilitating this morning's Sunday celebration of life. I'm going to keep my remarks rather short today, as our speaker, Franklin Abbott, has a nice lengthy presentation for us this morning. But I do want to start with introducing a special song for the season, played by Scott Hooker, and it is a familiar tune to many, the Christmas song. Please join me in welcoming Scott Hooker.
Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, Jack Frost nipping at your nose, Yuletide carols being sung by a choir, and folks dressed up in festive clothes. Everybody knows a turkey and some mistletoe help to make the season bright. Tiny tots with their eyes all aglow will find it hard to sleep tonight. They know that Santa is on his way. He's loaded lots of toys and goodies on his sleigh, and every mother's child is gonna spy to see if reindeer really know how to fly. And so I'm offering this simple phrase to kids from 1 to 92. Although it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you. from 1 to 92. Though it's been said many times, many ways, Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you so much, Scott, for that beautiful rendition. I always just love to hear you sing and play. So on to our featured speaker today, Franklin Abbott. I'm going to just be simply very brief in introducing Franklin. He is has been a regular speaker for us for quite some time, and a member of our community in many ways for many years. And yeah, without any further ado, I'll just let Franklin get to it. Welcome, Franklin.
Life is a risk worth taking. Without much thought, my body awakens and arises each day, and without much thought, when darkness falls, my breathing patterns change, and I breathe my way down to sleep and pray that spirit holds me deep, and I should rise when the morning breaks. I stretch and yawn, and the lids of my eyes open in delight to the light. Hello, my name is Franklin Abbott, and I am speaking to you from my home in Midway Woods, which is near the Decatur area of Atlanta, Georgia, USA. I'm speaking to two audiences with this talk. I'm speaking to the First Existentialist congregation of Atlanta. They are an open spiritual community whose members have different beliefs but share a commitment to community, equality, and human liberation. And I'm speaking to the faculty, students, and administration of Joshi Medical College in Thane, near Mumbai in India. I spoke at the college in 2019 at the International Conference on the Pursuit of Happiness, and recently sent half a ton of my books to their library. They have a vibrant student population, wonderful faculty, and I have never felt so welcomed or so nourished. So I'm speaking to both audiences on the same topic: life is a risk worth taking. We take risk every day, and mostly we become accustomed to the risks that we are taking, and we don't think about them that much. I don't think about the risk involved in getting in my car and driving. I don't think about the risk involved in buying food at the supermarket and preparing it myself. COVID has increased my awareness of risk quite a lot. Every day is a math problem. And some days, it just wears a person out, and we wonder if it's worth it. We've been through highs and lows in the United States. We were all mutually terrified. Those of us who are conscious were mutually terrified until we could get vaccinated. Then we had a little period of time where we felt like the vaccination was taking care. We too soon learned, that there was a more toxic variable out there, a more potent variable of the COVID virus, and that our vaccinations had begun to wane in effectiveness. So those of us with concerns became more concerned until we got our booster shots. Then we felt a little bit relieved, a little bit more able to have a social life, and then the new variant showed up. And we're all wondering now how potent our vaccines are again, those of us who have been fortunate enough to be vaccinated. I read an article in the New York Times today that all across the United States, blood pressure is up. People are having more stress, and it's reflected in having higher blood pressure. I've also read articles about how COVID affects our dreams. For me, it's just a daily calculation. Who do I want to be with? What situations feel safe to me? I sort of treat people like calories. I can't have too many in a day. Everybody has their own way of doing the math. I have friends who are more casual than I am. I have friends who are far more conservative than I am. But for the most part, everybody I know has a certain level of concern. We are taking risks, and that is always a challenge. I'm a social scientist by training, a social worker, licensed clinical social worker, and so what we are taught in school is that, you do research on what you're talking about, and so instead of going to journals to do research on risk, I asked my friends on Facebook if they would send me, something relevant to the question, is life a risk worth taking? My friend Jose Aguilar, who's a human rights activist in Mexico City, very appropriately, not knowing that I would be speaking to an existentialist group, sent me a quote from the existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre. To know what life is worth, you have to risk it once in a while. My friend Alice Teeter, who I believe is the informal poet laureate of Pine Lake, Georgia, wrote, I'm not sure that one could really risk one's life. One should literally risk one's life, although I guess skydiving and freestyle rock climbing both could be that, and lots of people do that, and some lose their lives. I think risking everything else is worth the risk for sure. Heart, reputation, money. Our friend, the poet Jessica Danielle, replied that driving or riding in a car is more risky than skydiving, which I believe is true. My college pal, storyteller David Thompson, who lives in Austin, Texas, sent me a meme. It says, I'm not much on seizing the day, I just kind of poke it with a stick. My friend Michael O'Boyle, who is an artist in Cork, Ireland, says, depends on the odds. And my friend Patty Deck, who is a wise woman who lives in San Diego, California, says, risk is a growth opportunity. I say life goes better with a stretch, a creative move, and or a change in routine, big or small. My life has been full of risk-taking and opportunities. I also did informal research by opening my fortune cookie at the Golden Buddha restaurant not far from my home last night, where I shared a dinner with my friend Kevin, and the cookie was, spot on in terms of its message to me. You will continue to take chances and be glad you did. During this process of taking chances, calculating the risk, I've had some difficult moments, and I believe that that's true for many of us. And I think that, sometimes all you do with a difficult moment is that you sit with it and let it pass through you. Sometimes you ask for support, sometimes you distract yourself. I don't think the difficult moments are done. I think that whether it is COVID or something else, there are always going to be things that affect us in life, always things that challenge us, and there will be times when we're tired and we wonder if life is a risk worth taking. And I want to reflect on some of those moments in my life over the past several months that I've written about. Let me read you a few pieces about that. Disappointment. Disappointment is one of my triggers, like halt. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I'm also triggered by car trouble. Weird charges on my credit card by the credit card company. the perceived illness of one of my cats, and branches that fall from trees on my house. I used to be unwilling, unable to accept my eccentricity, and was critical of others, especially those with eccentricities I did not share. I had a friend with a phobia for green onions. She always asked every time we ordered anything in a restaurant if the dish had green onions. The gift of living a long life is that I have accepted those little kinks in my psyche when the world grows dark and scary, and I wonder, how will I ever? But I always do. The car gets fixed. The cats go to the vet. If I'm tired, I take a nap. If I'm hungry, I make a sandwich. If I'm angry, I huff and puff. If I'm lonely, well, there's the rub. I can't hold an invisible hand. I can't conjure a hand out of ether, even if I can remember such a wonderful time, such a joyous occasion, such a lark in the dark. If I muster, I take a deep, full breath and slowly exhale. I say a prayer, touch an idol, ring a bell, light incense, clap my hands. I cannot stand on my head or make pasta from scratch or play my piano, but I can sing. I can sing my song. Here is a little comfort song I sing to my cats, and I sing for you now. How does the sun come up? How does the moon go round? How do the flowers break the earth and face the sun, and push one petal at a time and bloom all the way open, all the way open, all the way open? I do, you do, we do. This is a piece I wrote about feeling free of some of the burdens. And I think all of us have found those little things that distract us, give us pleasure, amuse us, so that we can be in the moment and not constantly calculating, the math of risk in our heads. Float free. When I went to the nursery today, I looked for the most unusual bulbs, and I asked the woman working there, why are spider lily bulbs so expensive? She stammered and said she'd have to Google it. $7 a bulb is a lot. And when these beauties burst forth in September, their lacy red crowns bring joy to my heart. I bought a cat toy at the dollar store, a pink fish on a string, and my cats hate it with a fervor. That brings joy to my heart. My female feline, Zephyr, is the fastest being I've ever watched, and Regal Ferdinand easily captures the pink fish and bites it with glee. I speak on Messenger with a dear friend who moved away for reasons that are aligned with his destiny. I miss him and wish we were sitting across the dinner table. He was one of the few I kept company with when the cloud of COVID overwhelmed us. I know he is living his best life, and my heart is cheered by a video chat. And after that, the quiet of the night, the frogs singing in the trees, the lolling of the cats, and a quiet sip of tea lets me let go of this mortal chain, the pain of the body and soul, and float free. And this is about relationships. The circle of love. The circle of love is a merry-go-round that mostly we forget we're riding on. It takes us on a panoramic tour of life around and around again to the same place twice and twice again. Just like our friend the moon, on whom we croon or howl or scowl, we are waxing and waning, coming in and out of light and in and out of mystery. A wheel of fortune is all that luck delivers. Sometimes we ring a bell, and sometimes, well, hell, call it a night and go home. Maybe what brings delight is neither. It is the tease of not knowing, not being entirely at ease. The wind is blowing, the chimes are ringing, and the melody uncertain. On a cross-quarter night, the one where the veil between the worlds is light as feathers, is the face we see reflected in the water, a face of yore or the future, all the same, familiar. Sometimes what makes us who we are is the difficulty that we go through. There's an old saying about the heart that, heart can't penetrate or emanate from the heart unless it's been broken. We have to experience life in order to be affected by it and to also share ourselves with it. And this is a poem that I wrote about a friend of mine who went through a very, very difficult time. It's called Luminous. My friend Noel came for dinner, and I admit I invite him because he is luminous. 2 years ago, Noel fell from the roof of his house and was told by doctors he would not walk again. He drove to my house, walked to my door, and climbed my steps. We sat in my parlor and had a drink and told stories and ate dinner together. We see each other's luminosity in heightened states, extreme emergency, extreme ecstasy. Noel has been putting his broken back together, bone by bone, tendon by tendon. What does my body do across the table from his body, across narratives, under sinew? How do my neurons rearrange themselves to accept his transmissions and send clear signals? I suppose since we are broken in different ways, my brokenness speaks to him and his to me. It is only through the cracks in the egg we see. Sometimes it's not me, it's not somebody I care about that feels heavy. There's a word for this that is pretty much the same in German and in Yiddish called Weltschmerz. And this is a poem about Weltschmerz called Rise Again. I wake up weary. I wake up from dreary dreams. I know my eyes are often teary. I wish the future was brighter than it seems. It is a weight upon my shoulders, a sad song in my ears as the days are getting shorter and the end is coming near. How can I survive my melancholy mood? How can I raise my hopes that life can renew and carry on? I know that I am lucky, never hungry, never cold. I know the peace I sleep in is real. I can feel. I need not worry, but I do. My cats curl in my lap. They live the now and teach me how the news they feel is real. But I, with heavy heart and anxious mind, can fall apart when something far away clouds my day. It is not sober not to worry, nor sane to bleed the truth, that I am sound in soul and tooth. I'll find my way. I need the solace of old friends. I need new friends to teach me how I can begin again. I need my cats to show me how to defer my angst and purr and listen to the wind. I am a hologram, my heart the whole wide world. I am the soul of pain and the light within. I can sing the blues and read the news and rise again, rise again. Sort of on a similar note, this is called It Should Have Been a Good Day. And I preface it by a a quote from my friend and mentor, the late poet and filmmaker James Broughton. Follow your own weird. The autumn leaves were falling, the sky was blue and a breeze was blowing. I had lunch with a dear friend at a favorite restaurant and went to a cherished museum to visit old friends in the collection and see an amazing new exhibit. My feline companions have been especially sweet, and there has been plenty of good food to eat, and I took a long nap with a heating pad on warm to ease my back. And yes, the darkness came sooner. It is the time in the calendar. And yes, I had invitations to share warmth that were clear and very dear. There was something I couldn't shake. Was it a shudder or a fear or the darkening time of year or something dreadful coming near? My cats reassured me with lots of snuggles and purrs that maybe I am just weird. It is okay. It is normally abnormal. It is occasionally expected to be weird. It was a good day. It was a good day to be weird. To be weird. You are your own problem. Existentially, this is true from birth to death. Socially, it is true after you reach adulthood. I think 36 is the magic number. You have been in charge of your life for exactly as long as your parents were. The alchemy changes at 63, whether it is your eyes or ears or knees or hips or teeth, your heart beats too fast, your lungs pump too low, and it is not even autumn yet, only late summer. May the fall of your life be its glory, more than the radiance of childhood and the crescendo of adolescence, or all that you accomplish, all that you beget. It won't happen in an instant, but once or twice, and then more and more, you see a glimmer from a distant star, sparkling waters, a rainbow's arc. And in winter you shiver, and in summer too hot. Fall and spring will make you sneeze. But the pie you baked tonight was the best pie you ever baked. And the frogs are singing, but gently, tomorrow the night will freeze. How many times around the sun do they sing at your birthday? You have laughed and cried with countless abandon. You've been ashamed of yourself, and you have basked in applause. This is what the light is like as the afternoon slowly yields to night. And you know, with your cats, you will sleep tight. Icarus. You know the story of Icarus. It's an old Greek myth. Icarus and his father Daedalus were captives on an island, captured by an evil king, and they couldn't get off, and everything was awful, and they wanted to go home. But there was no way. The king had made sure that the island was completely secure, and so Daedalus had the vision of creating wings for his son to fly, and he, slowly picked up the feathers that birds left behind on the beaches, and found honeycomb from the bees, and put together this marvelous pair of wings, and he. So that Icarus could fly. So Icarus went on a trial run, and the only thing Daedalus said is, don't fly too close to the sun. Icarus did, and went down in the sea, and that's the myth. But I think that while, I think it was Jack Gilbert, the poet, who said, you can think of Icarus as falling, or you can think of Icarus as flying. And this is about Icarus flying. The Emily that I speak of is the great American poet Emily Dickinson. Icarus. Hope is a thing with feathers. So when I see a bird fly high like Emily, I have hope. Hope is a falling leaf that doesn't just drop, but floats on the wind like the leaves of the trees. I let go of fear and hope. I will float. Every night I prepare for sleep, make sure the doors are locked and my cats and I are safe in our castle keep. Every morning I open my eyes, put one foot on the floor and then the other, and I rise. I hope today will be the day I realize I can fly. The time of COVID, particularly before the vaccines, but even post-vaccination as we've gone in and out of cover, I've had perhaps too much time with two things. One, you keep hearing me talk about cats. Well, I live by myself, except I have two feline companions who are, in another room right now, lest they create too much disruption, but they are delightful companions. The other thing that I've had a huge amount of time with is me, that I have spent a lot of time with myself. And so I think what happens when you spend a lot of time with yourself is that you start to be aware that there's a dialogue that you're having inside your own head. This is called the two sides of my brain converse. I tell myself, call a friend. I ask myself, what is the next right thing to do? These instructions irritate my inner philosopher who demands introspection, insight, meaning. The old woman who lives in the back of my soul is far more direct. Clean the stove, brush your teeth, call Kevin. She's the one who feeds the cats and tells me to make a sandwich. My philosopher wants lofty answers to lofty questions. When did time begin, and when will it end? And begin again. I like to follow his line of reasoning, and I want to know how much mystery is yet to be fathomed. The old woman says, to catch a fish, bait a hook, sit by the river and wait. Let your hands listen, and maybe the fish will get unlucky. She smiles. She knows how to fry a fish. My philosopher is still looking for the exact temperature to the nanosecond when water comes to a boil. He will wait eternity for his tea. The other thing that I think time to reflect gives us is to think about who are we? Where do we come from? Why are we here? These are the three questions that the fairy philosopher Harry Hay once asked. And they follow me around. It's just one of those things that I heard as a young man, and I'm always thinking about that. Maybe not in the front of my brain, but it's something that's happening in the back of my brain. That that there's a story. And one of the things that I have been interested in doing and honored to do is, as a volunteer, I've done lots of oral histories for the archives at Georgia State University, and I've interviewed all kinds of people. I've interviewed my parents, I've interviewed many of my friends, I've interviewed elders in Atlanta's Indian community, some of the first Indian Americans who came to this country, and what were their stories like. And what I know is that my story is built on other stories that are built on other stories that are built on other stories, and that my story is a building block for other stories and other stories and other stories. So the name of this last little piece that I'm going to read to you is called Storyville. Storyville is a storied place in old New Orleans, which was a place where people went to have a good time, and that whenever politicians needed to stir up some sentiment, they would say, oh, Storyville has to be closed down. People are having too much fun. This happens everywhere all the time. So, but this is not about too much fun. This is about stories. My life is one story built upon another, built upon my mother's stories and my father's stories. My life is a story built upon my grandparents' stories and my DNA. My story is in part a Bible story, is in part a myth from ancient Greece, a nursery rhyme. It is written in Shakespeare's hand. It is a declaration of independence, of human rights, leaves of grass, a yellow brick road, a lush life, a howl. My story is told upon the land where I live. My home has been owned since 1947 by people a lot like me. The land it was built on was owned by some people and worked by other people and stolen from the first people who wandered these woods, hunted and gathered, and before them only deer and rabbits and squirrels and birds, snakes and lizards who know they are original. Trees shelter my story. The wind blows the chimes on my porch. Honeysuckle vines grow in profusion, and the ancient frogs sing from frost to frost. My story, which began in stardust, continues tonight as my fingers type and my laptop hums, and with the touch of a button, my story joins your story, and we enter eternity together. Following my talk, we're going to enjoy some music that features my friend Suryadeep Bhattacharya, and I always have to apologize for mispronouncing names and phrases in Bengali or Hindi. But Suryadeep and I have had the pleasure of performing together. It was my pleasure. It may have been more of a duty for him. He was a good sport. He's such an excellent musician. And he is featured on a video of a Hindu movie song, an old Bollywood song called Cuckoo Holy Koli Leah. Again, my apologies. Bien Chenmayi is the singer and producer. Shripasad Kotaji is the wonderful tabla player. And I found the English translation, which I think goes right along with what we are talking about in terms of is life worth it? The English translation of the title is The Cuckoo Bird Sings. And basically what I could interpret from listening to the lyrics, and we'll post the link to the lyrics both in Hindi and English so you can see for yourself, is love worth the risk? So is love worth the risk? Is life worth the risk? It's something that the song addresses. There's another song that's close to my heart that I learned to sing, but I don't have a piano player tonight. When things resume in person, we'll get the piano player and maybe I can practice and sing you the song. And I thought of it partly because the man who wrote the song, Stephen Sondheim, who is truly one of the geniuses of our time, recently died. He left behind quite a legacy in terms of the music for many, many Broadway shows that, whether you've seen the show or not, you've heard the song, and the song has become, it's on the jukebox of many of us. This song is called Being Alive. And what I think that it refers to, it means something different every time you hear it, every time you sing it. But what I think it refers to is, an answer to the question that we're asking, is life worth the risk? And Sondheim, talks about, finding somebody who will hold you close and hurt you too deep and sit in your chair and ruin your sleep. Someone to need you too much, to know you too well, to pull you up short, to put you through hell. Someone you have to let in, someone whose feelings you spare, someone who, like it or not, will want you to share a little, a lot. Someone to crowd you with love, someone to force you to care, someone to make you come through, who'll always be there, as frightened of you as you of being alive, being alive, being alive. Thank you for listening. It's always a pleasure to share poetry and observations with people who are dear to me and to the broader community of people who are dear to you. Until next time, my thanks.
फूल फूल पंखड़ियाँ
Thank you so much, Franklin, for bringing your beautiful artistry to us again this morning. Please join us on Zoom immediately following this broadcast for our meet and greet, where we will be discussing what Franklin has shared, as well as sharing personal joys, sorrows, and community announcements. You can find the access code or the access information for the Zoom meeting in the comments section of today's, or the chat section of today's broadcast. Next week, we will be back again at 11 a.m. on at this same spot. YouTube premieres, and we hope to see you then or on Zoom. Until then, have a great rest of your day, week, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.